Hmm? You have to put you down. It's not always doggy time. Hey everyone, my name is Sam, and thanks for checking out this video. Hello if you are new, and welcome back if you are returning. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and give the video a thumbs up. So I actually had a really fantastic reading week in terms of just total quantity. I knocked so many books off of my TBR. So I wanted to, talk a bit about all these books, as well as one book that I apparently totally spaced and forgot to review last wrap-up. It was a library book, so I returned to the library and just totally forgot about it. So let's just jump into it, because there's a ton of books. So the book that I forgot to talk about last week, and I do apologize for that, is The Daughter of Sherlock Holmes by Leonard Goldberg, I believe it was. I really enjoyed this book, but like I said, it was a pretty forgettable book, to be totally honest, in the end. It was light, it was quick, it was fun, but I mean, it really just apparently did not leave a super lasting impression on me. I think I gave it a 3 or 4 stars. It could be left as a standalone, but apparently it is going to be a series. But I will read the sequel. I love Sherlock Holmes. It wasn't bad. I loved the strong female character. I love that we got to see Watson after Sherlock, like the after effects of it. It was really fun, and there's, I love it when women get involved in like science and then men underestimate them and they get to be like, ha, slap you down. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that book. Then starting fresh this week, I read The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. It was one of my 2018 goals to reread this series, but I have not read this book since like before the films came out, like during like the hype after it came out, the dystopian like golden era. And I was actually kind of horrified and scared to read it just in case it wasn't as good, and I ended up hating it because I have so many good memories attached to this series. And you know what? I'm actually pretty relieved. I actually really enjoyed it. The writing was not as good as I remember it. I remember being like, whoa, when I read this. But as I reread it, I'm like, there's really very little character like development of Katniss. Like she's just kind of like, this is Katniss. She's good at shooting things. She loves her sister. But overall, I really enjoyed the plot and the premise. I still love Peeta. I'm so team Peeta. Liam Hemsworth is beautiful, but I'm sorry, Peeta forever. But I just love the entire concept, and I just ripped through it, I think, in like one sitting. I still love it. I also reread Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, so I am ready for the film to come out next month, and I'm so freaking excited for that. I absolutely freaking adore this book. I would say it's one of my top 3 favorite standalone. Well, I guess I'm going to consider it a standalone, but apparently now there's going to be a sequel. I don't know how I totally feel about that, because this book is kind of beautiful and perfect on its own. But, if the second one can be just as good, I mean, I'm not gonna say no. It's such a good book. There's so many 80 pop culture references. Ferris Bueller, Monty Python, every video game imaginable. It's just so good. And honestly, I found the interesting of like everything being online really interesting, just because it's where so much of our world is going. So if you haven't read this, do yourself a favor and read it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think I've met one person who said they didn't like it, and everyone else I knew was like, don't trust that human being. Like, there's something wrong with them. 5 out of 5 stars. Super ready for this film, and I will come for you, Steven Spielberg, if you mess that film up. Then I picked up Unearthed by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This book, I was very hesitant to get into just because I had heard very mixed things about the other trilogy that these authors wrote, Starbound? Yeah, Starbound trilogy. And I read Megan Spooner's standalone book, or the book that she wrote on her own, Hunted, and I did not love it. So I was very hesitant, because if this ruined Amy Kaufman, then it's potentially ruining Illuminae Files for me, and I'm super not okay with that. But figured it's a super pretty cover. The concept sounds really cool. But yeah, so the planet Earth is kind of falling apart, again, to basically climate change and us destroying it. And so our main character is kind of like, I don't know if bounty hunter is the right thing, but she's hired to go find things, and she's trying to make enough money to pay off her sister's servitude, I guess, is kind of the way to say. Her sister sold herself for money, to, just be like kept alive. And our main character is sent to a planet to, grab some goodies by, a person that wants them. And, things lead from there, and you find out that she was not sent there under the right pretenses that she thought she was. And you meet other main character, who is the son of a famous scientist on Earth who has been trying to warn people what is the issue, that it's not good that we're going to other planets and trying to steal all this stuff. Something's wrong. And, you know, especially since these aliens on this planet that we go to left a message that we haven't really decoded, or we've all decoded it and gotten different messages from it. I didn't mind this book. I ended up giving it, I think, a 3.5 stars out of 5. I didn't hate it. And like I said, I didn't go in with the highest of expectations. I think the romance was extremely cheesy and insta-lovey and not done super well. They didn't have a build-up to feelings. They're all just like, oh, I'm attracted to this being now and we're gonna kiss. And it was just meh. But I really loved the plot and the concept and the aliens and the twist at the end, and, you know, you never know who's actually on whose side, so it kind of kept you on your toes the whole time. And then you just got to, like, imagine this world where, you know, we're traveling to other planets, so how do we do that if they don't have the same chemical compounds and build up as our planet does when we need to breathe and all that stuff. I was really actually impressed with this plot, and I do plan on reading the sequel, but like I said, don't go in with super high hopes about the romance. After Unearthed, I picked up the Arkham by Jesse Andrews, and I got 30 pages in before I actually ended up DNFing this book, so I can't really give much of a review. I normally try and give 50 pages, but I just don't know what the heck I read in the first 30 pages and was not interested in continuing it. It has this weird thing where it's a world where, you know, the financially richer are physically giants, and the poor are physically like little mice and fly sizes. So it was just kind of a comment on that. But, you know, they use the word mun for money, and like just and they smashed a lot of words together that it was just very awkward reading it, especially since some of the words they smushed together, you pronounce them differently in like in like on their own. You know, you have read and read, but they're spelled the same thing. So I had to keep rereading sentences, which I found really distracting. And I honestly found it kind of a little bit creepy, awkward when they were using these babyish words, kind of like I said, mun. And then they would say sentences later that were clearly like a YA sentence, you know, mentioned adult or used the word like whore or something like that. It was just super awkward and uncomfortable, and I wasn't exactly sure who this book was supposed to be targeted audience-wise at. So I ended up DNFing it. I'm not going to pick it up, but I'm not really going to give a star review for a book that I only got 30 pages in on. So, yeah. Then to pick myself up, I read The List by Patricia Ford. In a world where you essentially, like, words are restricted and they have a value, and you have to, like, kind of, there's a monetary value that you have to, like, pay for it. And our main character gets really quickly involved in a, you know, chaotic conspiracy theory that she doesn't realize is going on, where essentially a high-up person in this world essentially wants to take away words completely. And it's really supposed to be an emphasis on the power of words and all that kind of stuff. And I love that this is a topic going on in middle grade. I also relatively recently, a couple months ago, read All Rights Reserved, which is kind of a book about the same thing, where, like, literally you sell your voice to like companies as a sponsor, and they'll pay for you to say words because each word costs you money. And I actually think this book did this kind of concept better. However, I felt like it was very on the surface, and it didn't really have a chance to go into, you know, much character building and world building and plot detail. Like, it just didn't have the space in, like, this span of time. So I feel like it should have maybe been like a first book in a duology, potentially. It just seemed very on the surface, which might be good for just traditional middle grade readers, but as someone who is 25, I was looking for a little bit more than just like the message of, you know, I know that words have power. You know, give me something with this story. I really enjoyed the characters, but just like I said, I just don't feel like there was enough time spent on everything that could have and should have been developed to make this so interesting. But yeah, so I think I ended up giving it like a 3.5 stars out of 5. Then I read The Book Jumper by Michelle Glaser, and oh my god, that cover is so pretty! And that is totally the reason why I bought this book. But our main character has the ability to get sucked up in a book, and get to, like, travel the book. And she finds out that her mother has this power as well, but it was hidden from her, so when they travel to meet her grandmother for the first time in her teens, you know, she finds this out about herself, and she has to, for a couple years, until she essentially kind of graduates high school age, protect a specific book, and that book that she chooses is The Jungle Book. Things start happening when characters from books start being found murdered, and they're not inside their books. They have to figure out what exactly is going on, and some family secrets get revealed, and there's a super cheesy romance that's kind of sweet. I overall ended up giving this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was a solid 3.5 stars until the ending. The ending was stupid. I'm going to be totally real with you. was not necessary. Like, it just, like, the author cocked out, it seemed like, and I was not impressed with that ending. Like, just rip out the last 5 pages or so and I would have been totally cool with it. The ending I just got and I was like, really? Are we actually doing this again? Like, I am exhausted of this. I am going to keep it though. The cover is so freaking pretty and it is a really fun light read. If you don't actually think about the book and analyze it, it's just a quick, enjoyable read. Then I read Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstances by, I want to make sure I say her name right, but I feel like it's Ruth Ellie something. I can't remember. Oh, I'm so bad at this. I have it written down somewhere too. I'm sorry. The picture's there though. But this was really such a cool concept. I remember hearing about this book when people did Book of the Month reveals. Our main male character was raised by wolves since he was like a little kid, and then he gets reintroduced to the world. And it's him going through all these different like points of his life and how he interacts and affects other people. And it was just such an interesting, enjoyable book. And it honestly made my heart like really, like it just warms my heart and kind of hugs me. And like, it's nothing too serious. It was a really fun concept. The relationships are so adorable. And like, this one was just a fun light read, but I also feel like it did have some substance to it. So I think I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The pacing was decent. The writing was decent. And the main characters were all really enjoyable to get to see the different POVs of. And then I whipped my way pretty quickly through Everlist by Sarah Holland. This is the first book, and I believe it's going to be a duology. But time is currency, and you pay, you know, if you don't have, you know, money, you bleed yourself of some time of your life. And, yeah, you use that. And our main character's father is essentially almost bled himself dead to try and support them. They were banished kind of from a kingdom, and she doesn't know exactly why. She doesn't remember all of the events. She just remembers one of the current like royals of the community is kind of a sociopath from the sounds of it, and tried to kill his other brother while she was present. And things just kind of unravel when they're just so broke that she signs up to become a servant for the royals and is taken there because of the high, you know, pay that they're going to give her. Time is not the same everywhere, and you start finding all that stuff out, and there's a bit of a romance. And I think like this book was a decent debut, but it was very basic traditional YA fantasy. However, I did really enjoy that romance was very low key. Our main character focuses on the relationship with her father, and then the relationship with her family outside of that, and then there's friendships attached to it. I just appreciated the book doing that instead of just focusing on the romance. The ending, I was not expecting the ending just because I said like how traditional expected the rest of the book was. You know, it was enough to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll read the sequel. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. And I really enjoyed like the concept of time becoming currency. And I really appreciated the author explaining how they literally do that, because there's some books where it's like, oh, time is this, but they don't actually explain how you do it. This book in several scenes actually explains how they bleed you and then how that is turned to physical currency. So I really enjoyed that. So I think 3.5, 4 stars, and I'll definitely read the sequel. And my second last book, just super quick, was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I read the illustrated edition with Jim Kay. So I just wanted to point out some really pretty illustrations. And if you don't own the illustrated copies of it, I would really highly recommend investing in them. But I really love this sketching of Hermione. The one with Harry Potter during the Quidditch game. I love these full illustrations. I also really enjoyed this, like, the Skelegro thing. Like, that was so cool. The one with Hagrid. I love Hagrid. Yeah, so, I'm really curious to see what the, Goblet of Fire one is going to look like. If they're going to release it in 2 volumes, or if they're somehow going to make it, like, this thick or something. I don't know. And hello from editing, Sam. This is kind of hard. So the last book that I read this week was Dredd Nation by Justina Ireland. It's an arc, and I had issues with it. So I'm mulling it over at the moment and trying to figure out exactly how to tackle it. But I mean, like, the simplest way I could explain it is I had issues with the way that the Indigenous character was represented in this book. So I'm really trying to kind of collect my thoughts and organize everything, and I've reached out to the author too to try and get some sort of an explanation. So I'd really feel more comfortable like making my review video once I've had like a couple days to sit on it and figure out where I want to go with it. Most likely I think I'll do the review for it next weekend, I think. And one of the things too is just because it isn't released yet, I want to make sure that I'm able to do a review where I can make the point and like raise the issue that I have while also making it like spoiler free so that so that way people will watch it. They're not going to like see like, oh, review of Dredd Nation by Justine Ireland, spoilers, and be like, oh, sure, click, yeah, I want to get spoiled for a book that doesn't come out until like April. So, that's where I stand at right now. Also, make sure to check the description box down below for links to all of my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you back.